Hey guys, today I'm out in Spain finally getting hands-on with the Polestar 3. I can't talk about how it drives yet, but be sure and stay tuned for that video. We can talk, however, about almost everything else. Interesting twist, the Polestar 3 and the Polestar 4 are going on sale at the same time. But as I said in the Polestar 4 video, the two vehicles are completely unrelated. This one is closely related to the upcoming Volvo EX90, whereas the Polestar 4 is related to the Zeekr 001 from Geely. Up front, this looks actually more like the Polestar 2, perhaps because of that Volvo relationship. The Polestar 2 is of course related to the Volvo XC40. We have the same sort of sensor array here in the front that we find in the Polestar 2. Very similar design there, different than the 4. Much more of an upright front end as well. The headlights are all one module instead of the split design, and then we have this little sort of bow tie thing going on, very similar to the Polestar 2. But the big thing you're going to notice is how much taller the front end is. It's almost hip height, whereas the Polestar 4 comes in closer to knee height. We do, however, have this big arrow blade here, which sort of makes it look a little bit taller up front than it would otherwise be. That helps improve aerodynamics. It's logically here also for pedestrian safety in some markets because it gives you a little bit of extra cushion there. And it helps just with the proportions and general design of the 3. Now, speaking of proportions and general design, when you approach the Polestar 3, it definitely has kind of a station wagon vibe, which personally I really love, but it kind of is an optical illusion because from some angles it doesn't look like it has as much ground clearance as it does. Hold on to your hats. 8.3 inches of ground clearance is standard, and if you inflate the standard air suspension all the way up, you get 9.8 inches of ground clearance, and we'll show you that in just a second. So definitely lots and lots of ground clearance, but I think the reason that it looks a little smaller is because the roofline is definitely quite low. That's possible, of course, because this is a battery electric vehicle and has a skateboard style pack under the body, and they were able to just really lower everything to the ground. Versus the 4, we have a much more upright cargo area. Again, sort of, Porsche station wagon vibes, I guess you could say. I'm getting a lot of Taycan Turismo vibes in this. Big cargo area in the back. We can put a 22-inch roller bag in that position. And of course, we have the powered hatch there. Nice slim taillights here. Interesting twist is that we don't find the Russian nesting doll design theme in the Polestar lineup like we find in some of the Germans. So even though there are design cues that are similar to the other Polestar models, it's not an exact duplicate of either the 4 or the 2. Everybody wants to know what's under the hood, so let's take a peek here. Remember that we do have a standard heat pump system, so obviously we don't find as much room for a storage area as you'll see in some. But there is about 1.1 cubic feet of storage there, so you can put your charge cables, your EVSE, that sort of thing under the hood. And you are going to need to store your NACS adapter or J3400 charge adapter because this will have a CCS port at the beginning. Polestar has committed to the new J3400 charging standard, but that's not going to happen immediately. This is a European spec vehicle, of course, so back here we have CCS2. It's the Menkes connector up top with the DC pins kind of like America down below. Now, what makes this go? Well, under the body, skateboard style, is a 111 kilowatt hour battery pack that is notably larger than the one in the Polestar 2, a little bit bigger than the one in the Polestar 4. That's what helps get this 315 miles of range with the dual motor all-wheel drive setup and nearly 500 horsepower, 489 ponies, 315 miles of range. If you get the performance model like this one is, then that range will drop down to under 300 miles, but you get over 500 horsepower and 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds according to Polestar. At some point soon, there is going to be a single rear motor model. We don't know exactly when that's coming, but they have said it is coming in the future. Interesting twist about the rear motor in this vehicle. It's a 272 horsepower motor versus a 245 horsepower motor in the front. So it's going to have a strong rear power bias all the time, and it has a mechanical torque vectoring unit. At this point in time, this is the only EV I can think of that has that kind of rear axle setup. A little bit more common in the EV world is to put 2 electric motors in the back. There's some pros and cons to that. 2 electric motors is more expensive. And also, when you're torque vectoring, all you can really do is turn off one motor or the other. So you can just send all the power to the left wheel or to the right wheel by disabling the other motor. With this, all 275 horsepower can go to a single wheel in the back, and that definitely is different. It also has another benefit. It can allow them to mechanically disconnect the rear differential and the rear motor from the equation to help improve fuel efficiency. So in steady state highway travel, in the range mode, if you want to max out your range, it will actually disconnect the rear electric motor and operate just on the front electric motor. But if you're driving it spiritedly, most of the power is going to the back. Now let's check out the seats. If we hop in, the first thing that I noticed, at least, is that the ceiling is definitely higher than the Polestar 4. Of course, that Polestar 4 is designed to be an SUV EV coupe. The next thing I noticed is that I am not the biggest fan of this seat control here. Here's what's going on. There's a little button in the center, and we press that button, and then it becomes driver's seat tilt and the four-way lumbar support. Press it again, it becomes the bolsters. Press it again, it becomes the more basic seat adjustments of forward, backward, tilt, recline, etc. I don't find that knob overly intuitive, and driving along today, if you're the kind of person that likes to adjust their seat here and there a little bit, you'll probably find that it's going to be on the wrong mode for you. On the other hand, the seats are very, very comfortable. These are basically a Volvo seat design that Polestar has adjusted for their own tastes and their own style, and intrinsically, they're just some of the most comfortable seats available. We also find a powered seat massage function in here that's pretty aggressive, and uniquely, you can heat and ventilate the seats at the same time. That's pretty rare. We have a powered tilt telescopic steering column with a decent range of motion. We'll take a look at that in just a little bit, but first we should hop into the back seat, because the back seat is definitely one big reason to get this over the Polestar 4. And keep in mind, this is a bit more expensive, probably as a result. Back here in the rear, we have gobs of headroom. I'll just slide all the way over to the side so you can see what's going on. Just tons and tons of headroom back here in the rear, even if I'm in the middle seat position. And that's because the middle seat is actually about the same height off the ground as the outboard seats, even though this has a very bucket style rear seat design. That's allowed, or possible I should say, because this is wider than the Polestar 4 in the back, and you will definitely notice it. The fold down armrest is wider, everything is going to be a little bit roomier, especially if you want to put adults and or child seats in the back. This front seat's comfortably adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. I have lots and lots of legroom back here, and there'd be lots of room for rear-facing child seats especially. Here in the middle, we find touch controls for the outboard heated rear seats and the controls for the 3-zone automatic climate control system. We also have pretty standard air vents back here, rather than those wiggle them around your finger around the screen kind of air vents. Down there we have some USB-C ports and, of course, a completely flat floor in the back. Going back up front, let's take a quick look around the interior. We have the gold seat belts that Polestar has been known for a while. Big glass moonroof up there. It doesn't feature an electrochromatic dimming function, which I would love to see on this. Hydro-adjustable shoulder belts, but fixed in-place headrests. This has the Bowers & Wilkins audio system, so we have surround speakers integrated into the headrest as well. That's a really elegant touch, and I think it blends well with the interior and this two-tone design to have the headrests black there. What I think is a little bit more peculiar, let me know what you think about this. We have the 100% traced Napa leather logo right there on the seats. I don't understand why that's on all 4 seats. I guess it's sort of a bragging rights thing if someone hops in your car and they ask you why you have Napa leather in your electric vehicle. If I were to buy one of these, I would probably choose the optional leather upholstery or the wool upholstery. I do think that the wool seats are actually a really cool touch. Moving up to the doors, we find lots of soft touch materials, fabric inserts right there around that speaker area and the Bowers & Wilkins logo, and definitely a very minimalist Scandinavian design, I would say, inside. They are definitely pulling some cues from Volvo as far as the design, as we see in the Polestar 2, but this goes in a different direction than the EX90. We still have wood trim on the inside, which is something that I appreciate. This really cool Bowers & Wilkins speaker up here in the dashboard, it really is a really nice touch, kind of bullet-shaped right there. Versus the Polestar 4, we not only have a vertical orientation screen instead of the horizontal one, we also have those regular air vents. So again, you're not wiggling your finger around the screen to adjust the air vent. This software is not the final version, I will have to tell you, because we don't have Apple CarPlay on this. They say that's coming via an over-the-air update for early adopters, but by the time larger quantities of this are being shipped, we should have Apple CarPlay by default. Down here we find 2 USB-C charge ports, some storage down there for phones, things like that. This is where we have a wireless charge mat, and you can put your Polestar key card for starting the vehicle. Two big cup holders there. This is the volume and play pause button for the infotainment system. We have a big LCD instrument cluster over here for the driver and a full color heads-up display. But interestingly, these are both a little bit smaller than the one in the Polestar 4. Interesting touch also is that the system is significantly more responsive than the Polestar 2. By the time you've unlocked the door and hopped into the vehicle, the system has already sprung to life. All you do is put your foot on the brake pedal, pull that shifter down there to drive, and the system basically boots up instantly. You can see that there's some warning messages there on screen, but the mapping interface, all of that pops up right away. And also importantly, this infotainment system boots up to life right away. It's also very, very snappy and responsive, something that I was a little bit surprised by because the similar software in something like the Polestar 2 is not nearly this responsive even after its recent refresh. All of these options respond very rapidly, and the system is very easy to use. Thanks to the Google Mapping service, we have EV range estimation, percentage on arrival when you actually get to your destination there, and if we were to select one of those options there, you can even choose the option to EV charge along the way, even if you don't necessarily need to right away. And it will tell you how many stations are available, what they're going to do for you, etc., when they were last used, if they're out of service, or importantly, if they have no information at all available. If you're interested in the new Polestar 3, head on down to your Polestar space or check them out on their website where you can already configure one and order one as well, because these are being shipped to the United States right now and they should be on sale shortly after you're watching this video. Interestingly, there are going to be some 2024s initially, and then it's going to shift to model year 2025. The launch editions, they're all going to be 2024s, but if you're pre-ordering one now for configuration and sale a little bit later in the year, it's going to be a 2025. The pricing is essentially the same as is the feature set. I honestly don't know why they didn't just skip straight to the 2025 model year. If you are also interested in a rear-wheel drive model, you're going to have to hang on for a minute because it sounds like that may be a 2026 model year option. At the moment, again, they're all going to be dual motors. And that means that the price tag is going to be a little bit higher than some folks may have been hoping for. This is going to start just under $75,000 plus, of course, a $1,400 destination charge. That does get you 489 horsepower and 315 miles of range, however. If you want the performance model like this, it's going to start just under $80,000. That's going to give you 517 horsepower and about 280 miles of EPA range. If you get carried away with options, you want everything on board, including the upcoming LiDAR module, which is not going to be on sale till calendar year 2025, then this is going to go up to around $100,000. Whether that's a good deal or a bad deal is going to depend on exactly what you're cross-shopping the Polestar 3 against. I can't go into driving dynamics, but you can read between the lines. We do have that torque vectoring axle in the back, and it's pretty aggressive because it can again send 275 horsepower to a single rear wheel. That's definitely different than we find in something like a Cadillac Lyriq. The Lyriq is going to be less expensive than this depending on the trim we're talking about, but this is going to charge a little bit faster than the Lyriq. This has a 250 kilowatt DC fast charge speed, and thanks to its 400 volt architecture, it's going to natively function well on the Tesla supercharge network in the United States. And Polestar has agreed to use the Tesla supercharging network. There should be adapters coming at some point soon and a native J3400 connector at some point in the future. Versus a Porsche Macan or a BMW iX or Mercedes-Benz EQE, very direct competitors to this, some of those are going to be a bit boxier, especially the BMW iX. That is sort of a faithful electric rendition of a BMW X5, if you will. The back seat's more upright, it's higher off the ground. We have a boxier cargo area in the back. The EQE, it's a little too jelly bean for me in terms of its style. This is definitely a bit boxier. I think it's also a bit more muscular as far as its design. I really like this particular angle here where we have that strong shoulder design. I think I like the look of the EQE a little bit less than this. I also like the pricing on this a little bit better because the EQE can get fantastically expensive if you get carried away with options. And that's really the big thing to know, whether we're talking about the BMW or the Mercedes or even the Audi Q8 e-tron or the upcoming Porsche Macan EV, which should be on sale by the time you're watching this video. This is going to be less expensive when comparably equipped. Some things that we don't know in the future, they're still leaving a little bit unanswered, are what exactly is the LiDAR module going to get used for? It's going to be a beluga whale style bump right up there on the windshield. It's going to give you expanded autonomous emergency braking and the potential for some additional automated driving features in the future, but they've been a bit tight-lipped about exactly what that will mean. Actually very similar to what Volvo is doing in the EX90. And speaking of the EX90, that's going to start under $80,000. It's not going to be quite as peppy as this. It's going to have 3 rows, a bigger cargo area in the back, and of course a Volvo logo on the front, and a little bit more of a traditional design. It's clearly targeting a family, so someone that needs that 3rd row or wants the 3rd row, or someone that wants 2 rows with the 3rd row folded all the time for the extra cargo capacity. Keep in mind, this is targeting someone that wants a sportier driving dynamic, a more engaging feel. We again have that torque vectoring axle in the back, and importantly, they don't need the 3rd row. And maybe they're interested in a little bit of extra range, because 315 miles of range is a little bit further than you'll find in that EX90. Let me know what you think about all that down there in the comments section below. Do you have a Polestar 3 on order? Should we order one here at Auto Buyer's Guide? I've actually been contemplating getting a base dual motor model, or as close to that base model as I could find, because I am really intrigued about the Polestar 3's just blend of features and functions and performance. This is a really interesting option in this EV segment because Polestar is not quite a startup company. Obviously, they started under Volvo. This is very directly related to the Volvo EX90. And it is that blend of startup-like functionality and features with some extra buttons and more traditional car line features that I personally appreciate. But let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section. Also, let me know how you feel about the initial models being built in China. That's not as big of an issue for me because production is moving to South Carolina in very, very short order. By the time 2024 draws to a close, Polestar 3s are going to be built in South Carolina for the North American market and actually for some other markets around the world. So let me know about that. Find us over at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And I'll see all of you later. Stay tuned for the full review dropping in a few weeks. Hey guys, today I'm out in Spain finally getting hands-on with the Polestar 3. I can't talk about how it drives until June, but we can talk about just about everything else. Obviously, the big thing to know is that the Polestar 3 is not related to the Polestar 4 at all, even though they are suspiciously similar in size. I just got bitten by an ant.